Well, good evening, y'all. I'm Tina the Tiger, and you know I talk about the treasure of Tuskegee. I drink tea, I have red lips, and I have a red tail. And of course, you know the significance of the red tail. That's the Tuskegee Airman. And today, guess what? I have a guest, actually two guests with me. I got Peanut, the dog. He didn't bark at me, so I decided he should, since he's not barking at the tiger, we'll just bring Peanut along. But the most important person that we have today is Mr. Samuel Tellis. You won't find Mr. Samuel Tellis in the history book, but you will find him right here in Tuskegee, Alabama. So I decided that he has such information that I believe you want to hear this. Like I said, in Tuskegee, we talk about our history, our legacy, and our destiny. I am Tina the Tiger, so remember, you'll see me with my red lips, my red heart, and my red tail. There are no other tigers with the red tail, so if you see a tiger with the red tail, you know that tiger's from Tuskegee, Alabama, and we talk about our history. Good evening, Mr. Tellis. How are you today?
Good evening, I'm doing good.
Good. I hear you have a birthday that's coming up this month.
I am getting to be an old man.
No, man, how old are you going to be, Mr. Tellis?
I will be 89 years old.
When's your birthday?
February 18th.
Mr. Tellis, my birthday is February the 16th.
Oh, mighty nice, mighty nice.
Yeah, if I had kicked a little harder and born 2 days early, I would have been born on February the 14th.
I just missed the Valentine's Day.
You same here.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Tellis, I really want to hear all about the history of Tuskegee. I know you know a lot about Tuskegee, and I want to say thank you so much for deciding to come on with Tina the Tiger, talking about Tuskegee's treasure. So just shoot at it, Mr. Tellis. I'm going to be what they say, when you're in the presence of wise wisdom, you just sit still and be quiet and listen. That's why God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. So I want to hear all that you know about this wonderful history in Tuskegee, so that those wonderful kids can know about this legacy. See, many people look at Tuskegee and they don't know how important Tuskegee was or is. And I know that many things that take place in the world happen right here in Tuskegee. So I'm going to put my mask on, and then I'm going to listen to what you have to say. You go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Samuel Tellis, and I want to take you on a trip. I came to Tuskegee in 1965. September, I came here to enroll at the university. It was Tuskegee Institute at that time, but I came to enroll in a program there. I had just finished 2 years of military service there from 1953 to 1955, and I wanted to get some additional training in automobile mechanics, because I was a mechanic in the military, but I need some paperwork to go with that, and it was my desire to open up a shop, open up an automobile shop. So I need the credentials there for being a mechanic. So I came here to enroll in that 2-year program that Tuskegee was offering. Tuskegee also was offering other program that was called Industrial Art. And they offered mechanics, they offered machine work, they offered plumbing, they offered carpentry, and upholstery. And we also were in some academic subjects, because I was in a class with Dr. Tolan, which was part of that program. And it was a 2-year program. At the end of 2 years, we were supposed to receive a diploma. During that time there, Tuskegee was quite segregated. Matter of fact, the mayor and the city council was totally white. And therefore, when time for election time to come, they continued to elect white people in the positions during that time because black people had not registered to vote. They were just beginning to get registered. And so there was an effort to get black people registered so that they could vote in the city election. And that's when a number of people came and registered to vote, and during the next city election there, they voted, and here come Johnny Ford, the first black mayor of Tuskegee.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And during that time, the council, trying to control the city there, they moved the city limits. They changed the city limits from one area to another area, which only includes the city blocks right around town, and they put most of the original city out in the country there.
Like they redistricted,
so
they doing today, huh?
They redistricted
They
so that the white folk would have the majority vote.
Same thing they doing today. They
That's
just,
right.
as a matter of fact, they just did that just recently.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. They just did that. I read about it, heard it on the
Yeah.
news.
And so that allowed them to remain in authority around the city, the council, and so the people got upset about that gerrymandering the city limit there. So they boycotted the whole city, stopped shopping downtown, and people were going to a store out in the Notasulga area during that time to do their food and grocery shopping there. And so the city really got in bad shape because they were not getting that funds from people coming to town there.
Okay.
There were a few people who owed some of the merchants and people in the city, owed them some money where they had borrowed and so forth. So they continued to order stuff and have it delivered to their houses there in order to still support that. There were people who had borrowed monies and lived above their means and didn't manage it well there, so they owed various merchants down in town monies, and they did not know how much their balance was because they didn't get receipts and monies from them. They get receipts for the money that they had borrowed and how much they paid and how much they continued to owe. In the meantime, on campus, the hospital on campus, which was known as John Andrew Hospital, was very active during that time. It had a number of doctors and services up on there, and people were coming from far and near to the hospital. Most of them were coming to deliver babies.
Is that the hospital that the students built?
Yes, it belonged to the institute.
So the students took the bricks and they built that John Andrews Hospital.
The John Andrews Hospital belonged to the school, and the city was trying to operate it.
Oh, I was born at John Andrews Hospital. I didn't know all of that history. Thank you, Mr. Tellis.
Yes, that's how they came by.
Wow.
And finally, over the years there, the school took the school back in possession of the school there. And you no longer have a hospital in Tuskegee. That's what happened to it. But it was blossoming at one time then, and there were people coming from all over the place having babies and getting medical treatment and so forth. Also during that same time period, the VA over there was established. Now, the reason why we have that VA over there is because black veterans did not have anywhere that they could go when they needed to be hospitalized. Segregation would not allow them to go to the same hospital with white people. So
Okay.
there were veterans who had nowhere to go. And the Institute give that land over there and use some of the bricks and materials there to build that hospital over there. And it was staffed with blacks, doctors, nurses, and directors, and so forth there that completely staffed that hospital. And the only dependence that the hospital had with the city was electricity.
Okay.
They had their own boiler plant for heating up everything. They had their own fire department and emergency equipment in case the current goes off and so forth. Yeah.
So all of that was in the black community?
That was at the VA.
Wow.
That was the VA. See, black veterans from all over were coming to this VA because this was the only place they could be treated at. They were not allowed to go to other VAs because of the segregation. The year of 1967 there, I was in the dorm over on campus there just down the hill from the chapel. The same day that the chapel just caught on fire that afternoon and blazed up and burnt the chapel down.
Oh my goodness.
And to this day we have not heard why that chapel burnt down. Yeah. But it just happened. Matter of fact, it was not dark when it blazed up over there.
It's caught a fire and just burned.
Right, and the building that I was in, it got so hot on the outside that it scorched the paint on the building. That's how close we were to the chapel. Yeah. Also that we had protests and integrating the school system came up during that period there. And troopers, federal people had to come in town to allow blacks to go to school downtown. The high school line that was integrated, and all the white people that were going to school there left out and started a school, South Macon.
Okay.
Started a private school called South Macon. Yes. And they refused to go to school with the blacks, so they moved completely out of the area there. And it still ended up nothing but blacks in the school area there. In the meantime there, people were beginning to vote in some black people into the city council. A few folk were going into the city council, and black merchants were going into, moving into the city area there because the white people were gradually moving out of the area there. They just, for instance, the black, the bank downtown, the major bank downtown there was operated by a white president there. And finally we ended up with the black president of the bank.
Is that Alabama Exchange Bank at the time?
That was Alabama Exchange
Okay.
Bank. We finally ended up with a black president of the bank. And a number of things we looked up there, and we had a black sheriff.
What?
All of a sudden there, we voted in a black sheriff who was named Lucius Amerson.
Okay.
And he became the first black sheriff in Macon County.
So now you got a black mayor, a black sheriff,
Right.
and then a black man over the bank.
Over the bank, and then the first county commissioner came in, We also voted in Mr. Beasley became the first black man on the county commission.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, so we gradually started getting some people in offices. And in the meantime, as that was going on, white people were gradually moving out of the area.
Right.
They were moving out of the area.
So that's how Tuskegee ended up becoming all black area. So all the white people left.
Moved out.
Uh,
Also done that integration system down there. We had some folk who were kind of radical kind of folk, and they were determined to integrate the churches. There were several churches downtown that were white churches there, but we had some people during the protest were going to the church and going inside and interrupting the services and so forth like that. So we had some of that going on, and you know that created some serious problems.
It did.
Created some serious problems down there. School system ended up being totally integrated, and also people, county commissioners and people becoming part of the law enforcement, and we had people who were being city clerk, moving into the city clerk positions and probate judge position, and things just gradually started changing and going into the position where there were more blacks available. Yeah. And so, yeah, Tuskegee gradually started to change into, but also some things that did not really go so well for Tuskegee, because we tried to establish degree people who had degrees and were professors and worked up on campus and so forth. And the doctors at John Andrew and various places had a tendency to be high society.
For those of you that might just be tuning in, I'm Tina the Tiger, and when I drink tea and I talk about the history and the legacy of Tuskegee. I have red lips, a red heart, and a red tail, and that red tail signifies the Tuskegee Airmen. And I am talking to Mr. Samuel Tellis today, and he's just giving us such great information about all those things that happened right here in Tuskegee, Alabama. So Mr. Tellis, just tell me, what is the best thing that happened to you while you were in Tuskegee?
Okay, after 1 year of living in the dorm on campus, I moved out in the community, which just off campus there, when I found out I had some relatives out there. And that relative had a business going in Tuskegee, so I moved into an apartment there that they owned next to the family house there, and continued my going to school there, but I helped them with the business there, and they were in the business of selling coal and wood, and I had a real good business going on. It so happens during that time there was not a lot of people with gas, because the gas company had not extended the gas line into a lot of areas there. So a lot of people were burning coal and wood, and so when I was not in class, involved with class, I spent a lot of time helping them sell coal and deliver coal and so forth. Okay. Yeah, so I was into a lot of that. Also, that same family had a good relationship with some people. Matter of fact, some of the members worked at the VA hospital, and they knew some people at the hospital, and carried me over and introduced me to personnel and so forth over there.
Okay.
And I ended up at the last year that I was in school applying for a job over there. And when I finished school, I ended up going to VA and working at the canteen. As I worked at the canteen over there as a stock clerk, and also when the civil service exam came up, I took the civil service exam and passed it,
Okay.
and transferred to nursing service. And I ended up working at the VA 32 years and 8 months.
Wow, that's a long time, Mr. Tellis.
Yes, and but let me tell you some things that we lost out on because, as you know, George Washington Carver and Booker T. Washington played a major role with the school on campus there, and that the Peanut Festival that's going on down in South Alabama now should have been going on in Tuskegee because it came from Tuskegee.
That's right.
And the many things that were made from potatoes and other things and discoveries that we don't benefit from it. Those folks kind of
Just profit off of us.
kind of snatched it away from us and took some things away from them that we ought to be celebrating now.
And that's the reason why this show is going on, Mr. Tellis, because I really want our children to understand the history and the legacy of Tuskegee. And so what I'm doing, I'm talking to individuals that they would not ever read about in our history book. So that's the reason why you're here today, because we want our kids to know that Tuskegee has always been great.
Amen.
It has always impacted nations. Everything that you see that's going on, especially in black cities that have the name Greenwood, that came from right here where we're sitting. And we are at St. John AME Zion Church. And my understanding is that this church was donated by Tuskegee Normal School.
Yes, the property was given to the church because it had some connection with the students on campus. They were having service. And so the land was given to build this church here, and when I because of the relatives that I had in Tuskegee, they were members of this church, St. John AME Zion Church. So I started attending church with them. And from there, I joined the church, and I've been in here since 1957.
Wow, goodness.
Yeah, been right here at St. John since 1957.
Almost 65 years.
I've been right here a long time. Some of the things that really amount to good advantage and great advantages because we had some people who were dedicated and working hard, and as the years went by, we started having people putting in positions that really brought Tuskegee out. And right now I want to commend the women who, for instance, Tuskegee University has a female president.
Yes, sir.
And then the city of Tuskegee has a female chief of police. And we have a number of female who stepped up. We've just had a superintendent of education, female, that done a beautiful job. So I want to commend the women for standing up and stepping up to the bat there and getting in leadership positions and helping us to move forward.
Yes, sir.
One of the things that I would like to recommend to us is that we need to learn how to support each other and work together.
Yes, sir.
Because there are some things that we lost out on because we did not do that. One of them is that some retired VA employees got together and rallied to get a theater in Tuskegee. They got to build and got films in here and set it up where we could have movies and the people would not attend.
Oh my goodness, that's awful. That's just awful.
Did not get the support of the city there. People did not show up. They said they could watch TV at home.
My goodness. Let me ask you this, Mr. Tellis. What is the worst case of discrimination that you ever experienced?
I came along during the time when you had to go into the back door of the bus station. There you could not go in the front door. You had to go in the side door there. And there were eating places that you could not go in. The front door, you had to go in the back door and get your sandwich out of the window back there. During that time, with segregation going on there, we were not recognized as citizens. And I remember the occasion when we were trying to pay property tax downtown Tuskegee there, that we were standing around the wall and waiting to get up to pay the tax and to be seen by the people working in there. And some white people came in the door there, and the clerk told them to come on around here and have a seat over behind us in the back part there, and it made them comfortable with all these black folks standing around the wall. Those are some of the experience that I had that were really,
okay.
Yeah.
Yes, we're almost done. Now, give me one last question. Now, I'm doing that Tuskegee study, and what they call it the Tuskegee study, but we know that it wasn't the Tuskegee study. It was a government study on these men. What do you remember about that study? And then we're going to wrap it up.
That had happened when I came here.
Mm-hmm.
But I did meet some of those people because after I retired from the VA, I went to community action, and I was with the public transportation program. I need to tell you a little bit about that. That was a program that the federal government put in effect to see if it worked good in rural areas. A public transportation program. They offered a grant for it, and so Tuskegee was the first place to get it.
Okay.
And I came along later on, and the person that was operating it at the time when I came along, after I retired from the VA and started working with him, he retired and left me with it. and the program was given to the county commissioners.
Okay.
But the county commissioners give it to community action to run it. And the grant was given, and we provided transportation for all of Macon County.
Okay.
And it's still operating right now. That's a good program because it provides transportation for the rural areas and allow you to pick people up and take them wherever they need to go. And Tuskegee was a place that did not have public transportation. Okay. So people needed the transportation, and it's right now it's really a functional program.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Tellis, for joining us today. Peanut, this is Peanut. I named this dog Peanut because he just in honor of Dr. George Washington Carver. I couldn't get rid of him, so I said, well, come on, Peanut. You can just come along and listen to. He had such sad eyes, he couldn't leave my home. So, Mr. Tellis, we just want to say thank you so much for coming to talk about the history and the legacy of Tuskegee. Remember, I'm Tina the Tiger, and I talk about the Tuskegee's treasure, the history that you just won't find in the history book. Don't forget now, you'll see me with that red heart, red lips, and a red tail. That tail represents the Tuskegee Airmen. Thank you so much, and you have a wonderful, magnificent day.
Amen. And come join us at St. John.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Tellis.
All right.
Appreciate you.